Ripple's CEO, Brad Garlinghouse, this guy right here, was on stage with Swift's CEO, and they were debating XRP Ripple versus Swift on stage live. And most of you that hold XRP have probably never seen this video. So I'm going to show you this entire interview of this lady interviewing Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO of Ripple, and Gottfried Leibrandt, the CEO of Swift. This guy right here from Belgium. So Ripple CEO and Swift CEO were side by side discussing Swift versus XRP. And I'm going to show you this entire clip. And not only that, but I'm going to show you the entire interview. There are multiple clips that we're going to speak about that I'm going to show you because they speak about so many different things about why Ripple is better than Swift, why Swift will be replaced by XRP, and how they can potentially work together. So there are so many clips that we're going to cover right now in today's video. If you hold XRP, every single one of you right now, destroy the like button, share this video. More people need to see this. I myself just found out about this like a few days ago. So like I've seen a few clips, but I've never seen the entire interview. All of them, the whole interview from the beginning to the end. So that's what we're going to cover right now. So sit back, relax, destroy the like button, and enjoy.
Here. Yes. So we have Dr. Leibrandt, CEO of Swift, and Brad Garlinghouse, CEO of Ripple. I'm going to jump right into it with a big picture question. We're at a fintech conference here. Start with you, Gottfried. Why is Swift the future of cross-border payments?
Why is Swift the future of cross-border payments? Because, two answers. I think one is because we have 10,000 banks on the network, and that I think is a resilient system, correspondent banking. And the other reason is we're innovating like crazy. So the big, quite proud of that, the big innovation that we introduced 3 years ago called GPI, Global Payments Innovation, which really takes correspondent banking into the 21st century.
Brad, what do you have to say?
Well, I think we are moving into a new world order. I think the internet of value, Ripple talks a lot about what payments look like, not just, today, but in 10, 20 years. And when we think about that, we talk about this internet of value. How do we let value move the way information moves today? I think about the dynamic between Ripple and Swift, not dissimilar to the dynamic between, when Amazon in 1997, 1998, and you got Walmart. Certainly it's a David and Goliath kind of classic story. I think that the challenge is you're dealing with, when Ripple thinks about the future of the internet of value, really democratizing payments, reducing cost dramatically, increasing speed dramatically. We're really thinking about the same way we introduced new technologies like TCP/IP and HTTP that became the internet of information. When we talk about what the Swift network is today, it's kind of a closed network. It has a lot of members on it for sure, but AOL had a lot of members. And when we moved into the age of the internet and a decentralized democratic network, I think that what you're seeing introduced with blockchain technologies, and by the way, it's not just Ripple. When we think about interoperability, we think about interoperability between many blockchains. And I think that the future we see is certainly one of many networks, interoperable networks, and reducing the friction of those payments to close to zero. And I think you're going to see a lot of innovation spawn from that, apart from Ripple, apart from an entire ecosystem. So I also agree very much with what Gottfried said at the end. Competition has clearly been a good thing for Swift. I think that I do think what has happened at GPI is a big step forward. For 40 plus years, we had a construct around how cross-border correspondent banking worked. It worked, but it had a lot of limitations. We're seeing that move forward. But I think it's a step forward when you're switching from kind of, if I may, horse and buggy to, hey, can we make the horse and buggy go faster? Sure, but if we can actually just move to a Ferrari, let's do that.
Swift, GPI, is a horse and buggy, but Ripple is a Ferrari. That's literally what he basically said. And in this clip, they speak about negotiating a potential partnership because things get a little bit heated. And then Brad Garlinghouse is like, okay, let's partner up. Instead of us replacing you, let's just partner up and work together. Listen to this.
World where Ripple could take over Swift.
Well, I've also said I thought there was ways we could work with Swift.
Let's talk about that.
Well, I'll start that comment just by saying, look, Swift is, I think Gottfried by that is a very challenging job. Swift is owned by the banks. It isn't a traditionally kind of construct. You have a very strong chairman in how Citi kind of is an important stakeholder in that. But at the end of the day, Ripple's trying to help financial institutions and banks be successful in the future. How do we enable Santander to compete more effectively with PayPal, with Amazon, Facebook? And it's not going to be in settlement times measured in days. It's not going to be measured settlement costs measured in $15+ plus. So I want to see our mission in life really has been how do we help these financial institutions be successful those are the same financial institutions that own SWIFT. And so in many ways, we thought, hey, we could work together. That hasn't played out. And I think increasingly, we are seeing more and more banks adopt Ripple's technology. And we're seing that play out. I have a ton of respect for what SWIFT has built, just to be clear.
Godfrey, how do you feel about a partnership with Ripple?
Well, first,
We can negotiate it here.
Let's do that.
maybe like one is there's two types of competition.
You see, like Ripple, Brad Garlinghouse, he wants to negotiate a deal, but then he keeps saying like, no, like we don't want to negotiate a deal with you. And now we have gotten to a point where Ripple has no choice but to basically replace Swift.
Godfrey, why not use Ripple's technology to do that?
Because, well, we'll have to see. I think what we are seeing, we have a long discussion about blockchain versus API. What we could see is the API technology, which is at the heart of what we do with GPI, is here today.
Brad, do you want to respond as to why that might not be the case?
Well, I think the Swift model. We can talk about open APIs. We can talk about open networks, but it isn't. I mean, Swift is it's a Swift controlled API, and even I'm complimentary of what GPI has represented in terms of accelerating what has been a relatively slow process. GPI, I think, is a big step forward, but it's still a central database where you're querying a transaction status, and so that's a central operator. I think what Godfrey said is, and I agree with, decentralized systems. I think over time, as we've seen with things like TCP/IP, are likely to win, and I think that today is not what Swift is. And again, when we think about how to enable a transaction from a Barclays account to an M-Pesa wallet, mobile wallet, that when we think about an internet of value, it's not just about the banks, for sure. Yes, it's about regulated institutions, and we're certainly not trying to circumvent those things. But I think it's fundamentally kind of a different view of how the world may play out.
To that, a big part of the value proposition of Ripple, I think, is the cryptocurrency, the XRP. I think that's another one worthy of debate. There we do find that the banks are also, at least when they talk to us, they may tell you different things, they are hesitant to convert things into a currency, a cryptocurrency right now, because of the volatility in the currencies, because of the fact that you don't have the deep liquidity that you have in, for example, the dollar as a clearing unit at the end of the day. So again, when we engage banks, we don't find them ready for a model where you convert it into crypto and then convert it back, and that has to do with many things, regulation, volatility, and all the things that are so around crypto, but that's a whole separate debate.
It's not really a separate debate, because I think there's two important things about this, and Godfrey mentioned this earlier. Swift today is a one-way messaging framework. It actually isn't a liquidity provider, right? It's Swift messaging partnered with bank liquidity. When we think about an internet of value, it's a mixture of two-way messaging frameworks, moving to real-time, a chatty protocol, if you will, coupled with real-time liquidity. And I hear people talk about volatility, and I feel like they're propagating misinformation. The volatility risk of fiat. Volatility is just a mathematical calculation of time times volatility. If you hold fiat for, let's say, an average Swift transaction today is in the order of magnitude 2 days, that's about 180,000 seconds. An XRP transaction is 3 seconds. So if you take a low volatile asset times a long duration fiat, or a high volatility asset versus a very, very short amount of time, it turns out mathematically there's less volatility risk in an XRP transaction than there is in a fiat transaction. The difference is you have market makers. When you do a Swift transaction, there's banks saying, there's a market maker saying, I'll lock in that rate. I'll take the volatility risk for the next 2 or 3 days. With XRP, you don't have to do that because it settles so quickly. Every Ripple transaction is going through a regulated endpoint to regulated endpoint. There are no transactions that are not KYC. There's no transactions that are monitored for AML. So, look, I actually think using digital assets, and I had the governor of a large central bank in Southeast Asia say to me, if customers were using XRapid, which is Ripple's XRP liquidity, it actually reduces systemic risk to a country, a small economy. Let me explain briefly what that means. Today, in order to, if you're a bank in fill-in-blank country, you pre-fund accounts around the world. If all of the banks in this particular country used XRapid, the systemic risk would actually go down because they'd have more sovereign control over their own currency.
Just to be clear, when we talk crypto assets, in my mind, what I'm talking about is all the IPOs that are taking place.
I agree.
IPOs, Bitcoin itself. I think most of the users of Bitcoin these days seem to be ransomware and darknet places. So I wasn't particularly focused on XRP, which I'm sure you have under control. But if I look at the broader world of digital assets, I think it's a highly unregulated world. I had a guy at last week explain to me in Belgium who was working in China. His big business model was to put any type of assets, houses, planes, and ships on the blockchain and issue a token, a digital token for the ownership. He says that's great. That way you can sell your plane, you can sell your house without paying any taxes, without knowing anybody knowing who's the beneficial owner, etc. His whole business model was essentially regulatory arbitrage, etc. So that is a bit my And if you listen to the libertarians, they're all like, "Oh, this is great. We no longer have government involvement. People can take back their assets." And all I'm saying is, well, be careful. I mean, there's a reason governments get involved when value is around. So that was my point.
Do you want me to agree on that?
And Ripple is open to hiring the Swift CEO. Yes, Brad Garlinghouse is open to hiring Gottfried Liebren, this guy right here, because he stepped down as a CEO of Swift a few years ago. So listen to this video here. Basically, Brad extending him an offer again, saying, if you want to come work with us, come work with us. Listen to this. This is at the end of the debate.
We have to give you one more question because you'll be stepping down in June. So can you talk a little bit about your outlook for Swift once you're gone? What do you expect will be a bit of your legacy, and then what's your hope going forward?
Ripple is hiring.
That for stands. We'll leave it there. Thanks very much.
This interview between Ripple CEO and Swift CEO, honestly, I've held XRP for years now, and I have never seen this video. Like, this whole interview between the two of them, I've never really seen the whole interview. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, please show your support. It took a lot of time to make this video. Send this video, tap the like button, share this video, subscribe, whatever you need to do. Let the algorithm push this out. I love you all, and I will see you very soon. Until next time, Crypto AI Man.